I've done it again. Once again, I spent over 200 hours in the editor making a single GD level. And of course, this is none other than my newest creation, Jailbreak. So yeah, in this video, I'll be explaining my experience with building Jailbreak, which took over 200 hours in the editor. I'll just be talking about some behind the scenes stuff, like which part took the longest to make, or which was the hardest to make, or the most annoying to make, stuff like that. So yeah, let's get into it. We're going all the way back to the end of June this year, where I started the beginning of the layout on Jailbreak. So if y'all didn't know, my last level through time got a lot of complaints about terrible gameplay. So this time I decided I'd spend a lot more time on the layout and try to avoid making that same mistake again. I really focused on trying to make sure there was pretty good click sync, trying to make sure it wasn't buggy, played well of course, and trying to use the least objects I could because I like to keep my stuff optimized. And yeah, this took about 2 weeks to make the full layout. The duel part was a pain to make because I kind of just suck at making duels and making them consistent, but other than that, the layout went pretty well. But yeah, these duels here just took way longer than everything else. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make any duels in my next level. But I also took a pretty big risk with making this part of radial blur in the foreground and kind of move by. I wasn't sure if I'd actually end up keeping it because I wasn't sure if it was going to break and if it actually wasn't going to work right, but you'll see later. Anyways, yeah, the layout was finished after about 2 weeks. We did some play testing and made sure it played well, and the play tester seemed to think it was pretty fun and way better than through time, which was very nice to hear, so I uploaded the layout. Then after that, starting the first deco part, I mean, it took like multiple days to make the first 2%. All my levels always get off to a pretty darn rough start, and this one especially did. I just wasn't really sure how I was going to execute the prison thing, but I ended up getting something down. And the next 10% was still pretty difficult to make. It was quite a challenge. It was a little bit unoptimized, but it wasn't too bad. It was using about 1500 objects per 2 seconds. And yeah, it was a bit difficult to stay under that, but I managed to do it for the full part, which was good. Also, I sprinkled in a bunch of prisoners and little security guards in the background, which was pretty fun to make. After that, for the next part, I thought it would be really cool to have it be like you're on a security camera monitor instead of just normally being on the level, which is why I placed some static camera triggers in the layout. And yeah, this part took a lot of setting up. I had to like zoom out the camera to the maximum to make this computer setup even fit. Like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the zoom triggers on the lowest setting you can have it. I dealt with a little bug that wasn't too hard to fix, and there was some annoying things with making the camera switch positions, but I was able to fix that. And yeah, after lots and lots of setup, I finally got a really nice camera effect with a cool computer monitor and a little background, and I liked how it looked quite a lot. And then I spent about 4 to 5 hours making this transition of the cube, taking out the security guard, and yeah, I don't know if it was worth all the time, but I liked how it looked. After that, this part, it's kind of hard to explain what happened here. Well, firstly, let me explain. I tried to make the blocks look pretty metallic and like some alarms going off, and this part ended up looking alright. But then I tried to use follow triggers for parallax instead of move triggers this time, and that went terribly wrong. I tried to bug fix it, and I could not fix it. It was just buggy when you put a start position there. So yeah, I just wasted a bunch of time doing that, which kind of demotivated me quite a bit, but eventually I just continued with using move triggers as I always did. Anyways, this part was looking kind of ugly, and I wasn't too happy with it, but I just kept it for now and decided I'd polish it later. Then this part after actually went really well. I liked how the parallax and depth was here quite a bit, and the block parallax too. I think I did a good job here. Then the force part after this, it was kind of meh. Like, I didn't like it too much. It was really boring to make. I didn't like how this went. For some reason, like the brightness on the blocks and spikes were really unbalanced, and I had to balance it out quite a bit, which was just really annoying to deal with. But yeah, I finally got this part over with and into the city part. I started with the moon transition, which I totally did not steal from through time. And then yeah, I mean, this part just took days to set up and a bunch of time to make. Like, I added a bunch of little details. Please notice these details, like these movie posters took a lot of effort. And although I was happy with it looked, it took so long for some reason, especially making this part with the restaurant where you go in here. That took a bunch of setup too. Then this next part where I said I used a radial blur in the layout and I wasn't sure if it worked, it actually ended up working out, and I used that for the decoration. It created a pretty cool perspective shifting effect, and I liked it quite a bit. Although this part was kind of ugly, I liked the effect I had there. But yeah, this part took a decent amount of effort. I wasn't home when I was making this entire part, so like I was just spending whatever time I could to build this and get it done. And yeah, it was a kind of ugly part. After that, I spent a bunch of time making this helicopter and made this cool helicopter transition, which I liked quite a bit. And along with that, I ended up making my favorite part of the level yet. I was just a big fan of how these buildings looked, and the helicopter in the background and in the foreground too. I think it was a cool combo. I just thought it felt kind of epic with all the helicopters chasing you, all the rain pouring down. I was just a big fan of how this went. But they do say all good things come to an end, which was true in this case because I ended up making the next part kind of ugly. I made these buildings which had a cool parallax effect that I like a lot, but the buildings themselves were kind of ugly. But I did like that between the buildings there was like cops and helicopters and shooting at you. I like how that went. I spent tons of time trying to make this glass break effect look good, but I just could not get it to look good no matter how much I tried. Like, I just kept this. I didn't know what to do. And then I made this transition with the cube jumping out the building, which I thought was pretty cool. And don't worry, I know the cube is crossed cross-side. We fixed that later though. And after that, I got to work on the final part of the level, the dark alley part. This part took a pretty good amount of time to set up because I made some cars in the backgrounds, which I reused, but I still had to set them up in the right way. Some extra buildings, foregrounds, block designs, and stuff like that. It took a pretty good amount of setup, but it ended up pretty nice. Not the best part, but not bad too. I also added like some thug cubes in the background a bit and added a few rats, which I don't know if anybody noticed these little guys. And then I made the plot twist at the end, the sad ending where the cop catches you. This part with the cube staring out the window and being in the cop car actually took a while to make, and it still looked like a bit of a mess. But holy moly, this end screen took like multiple days to make. First of all, I don't really know how to do like perspective and art at all, and I tried doing that here with like the buildings, so setting this up was just really complicated for me. Also, this like 1 or 2 seconds where the camera view goes up, I had to add parallax here, which was such a pain to do. Then I added some little details to the buildings and stuff like that, then some details to the sky, but we are not done. Of course, I had to make the text on the end screen credit myself for all the hard work I did, and credit the playtesters for the hard work they did too, and yeah, that took a bit of time to make those texts. And I forgot to mention this cop car too, that just like fades off into the distance. This cop car took a while to make. But yeah, you might think this is it, but we are not quite done here, but we're almost done. I still had to do some polishing, we had to do some play testing, I gotta make sure levels as optimized as possible, had to add in a few Easter eggs, you know, some stuff like that. I spent probably a good week or 2 or maybe even 3 polishing the full level because I felt like there's quite a few things I could do, but it was probably kind of just personal nitpicks and nothing too special, so I'll get through this fairly quickly. The first part added a little bit more lighting to the block design, some more highlights, and I added some more particles around and a few other things. At the camera part, I added a few more particles for some atmosphere and added a few more details around the area. I tried to polish up this transition and make the person here actually look more like a geometry dash cube than it used to, because that's what it's supposed to be. Then for the alarm part, I tried to clean this up quite a bit because I thought it was pretty ugly and some of the colors were kind of annoying, so I changed those. I tried to add a little bit more air deco and details, and there was some broken block parallax here that I had to fix too, and I also added some more particles. I did quite a bit to this part actually. I made this transition feel a little bit more intense because some people recommended that I should do that in my YouTube comments, which was a good idea. At the next part, some of the blocks in the forest were kind of empty, so I added a little bit more detail to those, and I forgot what else I did here, but I know I did a little more than that. At the city part, I added quite a few more highlights and lighting for a bit more atmosphere. I also made the raid particles that last for like the rest of the level look more realistic because they looked kind of weird before. The changing perspective part, I tried to clean up the blocks quite a bit, got rid of the glow from the windows because that just looked kind of ugly. And yeah, the blocks were kind of messy. I tried to clean them up quite a bit. I think I did pretty well here. This part with the helicopter chase sequence, I actually didn't really do a lot here because I already liked it quite a bit. This part where you go through the buildings, I tried to make the buildings less ugly and the block designs a little cooler and added some more details and wet textures to the windows. I made this cube not be cross-eyed. For this last part, I added some things connecting the blocks here, a few more details, and I added some like power lines in the foreground. And lastly, I kind of cleaned this up a bit of this part where the cube is in the cop car and added like a tiny bit more detail to the end screen, like barely anything though. And after that, I just did some boring stuff like add LDM, tried to optimize it a tiny bit. I'd probably optimize it like a couple hundred objects. We did some play testing, made some changes to make sure it played well, and I also spent a bit of time making some Easter eggs, which they are pretty cool. You should try to find them. They explain the lore of the level and why you're in prison in the first place. So yeah, if you want to find that out, just do a little bit of searching, I guess. But yeah, that was really about it for Jailbreak. That was 200 hours of work right there. If you couldn't tell, it took about 3 months, and yeah, it took a lot of effort. I guess I'll say a few things like, well, it's the hardest part to make, stuff like that. Firstly, the hardest part to make was the very beginning. That went off to a very slow start. The easiest part to make, I mean, nothing really comes to mind, but I would say like the 70% part with like the helicopter chase that I said was my favorite part too. So yeah, that's my favorite part of the level too. My least favorite part of the level is probably the red part where the alarms are going off and stuff like that. And yeah, those are just a few things I wanted to say. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my 200-hour experience of making this level. If you haven't seen the full showcase for this level yet, check that out on screen right here. Here's the verification video too, and here are 2 videos I made of building the actual level, just in case you wanted to see some actual content of me building the level instead of just talking about it. But yeah, hopefully it'll get rated soon, possibly legendary. Come on, please, Rob Top. The level did get sent for legendary, so come on, Rob Top, just listen to your mods. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Thank you very much for watching and have a good one.